Today is going to be a great day. I got with me Doug Turner, who was here, a couple of months ago, telling us a horror story about how his son was hazed and brutalized, kidnapped, robbed. It goes on. And we're here to talk about the follow-up to that event. And with us today, we have Patrick. And Patrick is a lifelong law enforcement officer, and he understands quite a bit about criminal minds, criminal behavior, how to work the system that when crimes are involved. And he is very bright, sophisticated, and obviously has a lot of experience in this area. So hopefully Doug and Patrick will kind of dominate this show. I want to urge everybody to write their congressman, in essence, to show support for Doug and Doug's son, who was hazed in a horrible way, and to write to the newspapers, write to their congressmen, write to their local officials that this kind of corrupt, disgraceful gang behavior culture has to be stopped. We're rapidly proceeding into a shithole society that our dear president himself doesn't like. So in honor of our great president, we're going to try to not become a shithole country. Anyway, Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about the why we're here again as a follow-up, because the follow-up is actually, in my opinion, more important than the actual event. And I don't mean to make light of that.
No, I agree with you. And Alan, again, thanks for letting me be on your show. To bring everybody up to speed, this started back on October 22nd. So I don't know how many days it is, almost 150 days or so. And my son was stripped down to his underwear, had a gun pulled on him. He was shot 8 times. He was completely humiliated in front of his other teammates. There was video of the recording.
His personal items were taken, I understand.
Yeah, they took his keys and his wallet and some clothes and left. Came back. They brought them back, but they were left. They left with them, and this has happened to several people, not just him. There's a culture in this group of kids. It's a football team. It's a Marcus High School football team in LISD. And the school actually did an investigation. They found that there was hazing. They said it was not systemic hazing, although we have evidence to prove otherwise, that they do have a systemic hazing and systemic assault problem. It's just not hazing. It's at a whole new level. It's assault. These are felony, unlawful restraints, assault with a deadly weapon, robbery, kidnapping. It just goes on and on. And my son hung on to that for a week before it was turned into the school. And his girlfriend actually turned the videos in. And that's what started the whole thing. The next day, the boys were back in the locker room. They were back in the locker room. Yeah, the perpetrators. There was 5 of them total. 4 of them were 18. They were seniors. And what they did was, it's interesting, 2 weeks before they couldn't get Josh, so they got another boy, chipped him down, and rolled him in fire ants. So there's a history here of these boys. Now, the school district did take action against the boys. They put them in ISS. They separated them from the general population. They do not allow them to walk during graduation, and they did that. We immediately turned the videos to local law enforcement there in Double Oak. And the little detective, I think, and I'll let Pat kind of pick it up from there, because that's where it started disintegrating very quickly.
Okay, so from what you've told me, the prosecutor of that town, or it was a county?
The detective. There's a little detective there, Double Oak.
Okay, Double Oak.
Yeah.
And
Rosa Halfman.
Okay, and then when they looked at this from a criminal standpoint, they took some information to a grand jury, and the grand jury declined
Press charges.
press charges,
They did
right?
what's called a no bill.
To indict him.
Correct.
So
But it's interesting because they had, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, they could have picked these boys up on probable cause, no problem.
The day after it happened,
The day after.
they could have issued arrest warrants. Absolutely. The way all district attorneys' offices will follow one of two processes in filing criminal cases. Number one, the officer will take the case to them, present it, and the prosecutor will agree that there's probable cause, issue a complaint and arrest affidavit. You then take those documents, the officer would take those documents to a justice of the peace or a magistrate, get the arrest warrant issued, and then they get arrested. That's the first process, and that's kind of the most typical one. Most agencies do that. The other one is to present the case to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor, for a variety of reasons, can say, I want to present this to the grand jury. Let the grand jury determine if there's probable cause for an arrest.
Question.
Yes.
Is that, in your opinion, more of a political move than a legal move?
To go to the grand jury?
Yeah.
It depends. There's some cases that need to go to the grand jury, like officer-involved shootings that I've been involved in, cases involving politicians, where there's a lot of physical evidence that needs to be presented. And there are some real political issues at play to where the DA probably needs to pull himself out of that decision and let the grand jury make it. So there's some cases that it's appropriate to go to the grand jury. Other cases, it's not. And this is one of them. This one should not have delayed for, 4 months before it went to grand jury?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's
Correct.
no reason it should have gone to grand jury for a decision to be made.
Right. This is like a simple robbing of a convenience store kind of.
Well, it's a very simple case, and like Doug and I have talked extensively about this, probably almost every day in the last 6 months. Had this case not been on video, I could almost understand it not getting indicted, charges not being filed.
Right.
I don't agree with it, but I could understand it. But the fact that we have his son being shot 8 times with a pellet gun that he originally thought was a handgun, and there's still a debate as to whether or not a crime occurred. Like literally that's what's happening with the prosecutor, is trying to decide if a crime has occurred. If you look at the damn video,
Right.
you don't have to be a law enforcement professional. I've been in it for 40 years.
Right.
You don't have to have my experience to look at that and say, my God, that's a crime.
That's true. I've watched the video a number of times, and there are other elements about how he was surrounded in essence by these other the hazers,
Absolutely.
I guess, and his personal items were taken. So, I mean, you're in fear. You're totally in fear at that point.
Absolutely.
So, understanding that and understanding how simple it is to most people to look at that and say, boy, these boys did the wrong thing. They ought to be punished. Okay, now, punishment to me would come in the form of, hey, you're a criminal. You abused this kid. And
They should be held accountable for what
Right.
they did.
Exactly. So, could you talk a little bit more about what's going through a prosecutor's mind?
Yeah. So the first thing is all prosecutors are elected. All DAs, all the actual district attorneys are all elected. The assistant district attorneys are then either kind of brought on from the previous administration or they're brought in by the new DA. There is a political influence in filing criminal cases. That's just a reality. It happens all the time. And prosecutors like to have, because it makes them look good, like to have a record of a very high conviction rate. Well, how do you get a very high conviction rate? By getting everybody to plead guilty, either offering them really sweet deals to where they plead guilty, or the cases that you don't really like, dismissing them. Because if that case doesn't go to trial, then there's no chance that we're going to get a not guilty verdict.
Right.
So now my high clearance rate, my high conviction rate remains intact. So now when I want to go for a higher position, maybe state attorney general or whatever, I have something to fall back on. It builds their resume. So that's one thing that they do. In this particular case, I feel like maybe there's some improper conversations or influence that's been used by the parents
Right.
of one of these kids, who I believe is an attorney and knows the DA.
So, again, I'm the layman here,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to me, it sounds and looks and smells, and looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. To me, it's a criminal.
Look, the grand
Right,
jury did what the DA wanted to do.
That's the
100%.
point. So, where is how do you get justice if there's no morality? I mean, you guys, you're living through it. So you, on behalf of your son, and he's going to be scarred for life. I don't know to what extent, but obviously that's an event you never forget.
Right.
That's a traumatic event.
It's a major event.
Yeah. So, I mean, politics is like a bad excuse, right? Like,
Yeah, but it's a real
yeah,
one.
and so to me, it becomes a moral issue, and this is whether it's on a local basis or a state basis or a county basis or a federal basis. Where is the fucking morality here? Like, why can't people that are sitting on a grand jury say, I don't think the prosecutor may not want us to indict, but this is pretty clear to me, and I wouldn't want my kid or my grandkid or my nephew to go through this.
Well, so that comes down to how the case is presented by the prosecutor.
That was my next.
I have sat in numerous grand juries, and one of the ways that prosecutors present cases is in a way that they believe that there's probable cause, and or they like this case and want to prosecute it, so they present it in a way to the grand jury in their summary that this is a good case. This is why it's a good case. This is why we want you to indict.
Right.
And again, I've sat through 100 grand jury processes. I'm not going to talk about any of them specifically because I could probably get in trouble for that.
I understand.
But I can talk about the general process. And the general process is they read that summary. They ask the officer, is that correct? Do you have anything to add? I would say no, because usually it was a pretty good summary. And they'd ask the grand jury, do you have any questions? And typically the only questions I would get from the grand jury were citizen questions like, do people really swallow cocaine? Do people really run from the police? I mean, those are the questions you get from grand jurors, not specific probable cause related questions. So then the other side of it is if a DA, which I believe applies in this case, doesn't want the case to be indicted, he or she will present it in a way that comes across as very negative, lacking evidence, not good witnesses, whatever the case is. And the grand jury is going to say, we agree. And if you don't show them the video, which I don't think they did, I don't know that we'll ever know.
You just made the point, like the evidence wasn't there, or they weren't good witnesses. So that's like, now we're talking about a Broadway show, right? Like how to.
It's very choreographed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's totally choreographed. And
you can indict a ham sandwich. That's the old adage.
I get it. And the system, once you're in the system, it never lets you go.
Correct.
Right. I know that because I've lived through that. But the truth is that right and wrong, pretty evident if you just take a quick look at the 10 Commandments, like thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, pretty
Which most
basic.
laws are based on.
Right. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. I mean, and you don't have to be a lawyer or a Supreme Court judge to say, that's not right. That's that's really bad behavior.
Right.
And there's no, as a result of not getting that indictment, you know that your options for pursuing what is right then has to enter a different venue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from the beginning, when Doug came on the show the first time and we talked about and saw the video and this and that, what was evident to me was that there is absolute corruption here. Now, I don't know all those parties, but just as an outsider looking in, it's pretty, it's unfathomable that this couldn't be brought to a criminal court.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stresses me out.
So to this day, those boys have not been charged.
Right. And
So there is a reason they were not charged, and it's not for lack of evidence. There is a reason that the DA knows why those kids were not charged. But we talked about this earlier. These are five suspects, right? These are 5 white kids who shot another white kid with a pellet gun after they locked him in the room, stripped him, and took his clothes and took his property. If this was 5 black kids who did that to Josh, I guarantee you the prosecutor would have filed charges the day after. So if that's the case, why are we not being fair to everybody? Because justice is blind, correct? Justice doesn't see race, correct? But I promise you, had that scenario existed, unfortunately, the reality is those black kids would have been charged. So why are these kids not being charged?
I don't doubt a word you're saying. And I'm appalled by the fact that they haven't been charged. But I'm still like at a great loss. And I'm going to get political here for a second, guys. You know, I have faith. I believe in faith. I believe in God. I'm a little bit agnostic to religion. Like I have friends of, you know, they're Hindus, they're Muslim, they're Jewish, they're Christian. It doesn't matter to me. But if we can't stand up and say, this is wrong, because we're not, and you know, it's not like that was a war. I mean, war gets it's more murky because, you know, you have innocent people getting hurt on the sideline. But this is just an out and out crime. And we have no morality and I don't see evidence of morality here in the people that are involved, whether they're law enforcement or prosecutors or even the grand jurors.
Well, from day one, they have kept Josh and Doug and Amy in the dark. They've been told, both law enforcement and the prosecutors have told them multiple times, just let us do our jobs. Give us time. Back off.
Right.
All those things have been told to them. Okay, well, how much time do you need? And while you're doing that, why are you not keeping the family involved and updated and informed? That's a major problem.
So
I've been an investigator. I was an investigator for 25 of my 40 years in law enforcement. I've worked every major crime you can imagine, from serial killers to bank robbers to assaults on kids and family violence and thefts. I've worked them all. So I know how this process works. I'm sorry I'm getting a little pissed right now.
No, I want you to be pissed.
All right. But I know how this process works. And like we talked before we started this broadcast, I've always fought for victims and people that didn't have a voice for themselves. And in doing that throughout my entire career, it's important that you talk to the families, that they stay informed, that they know what's happening. But what's happening with this case with Doug and his family, they're being left in the dark. They're being told, give us more time, give us more time. And Doug has asked, well, what's the next step? Well, just let us do our job. That's not keeping a family informed.
To keep burying it.
Yeah, that's not keeping a family informed. Right. You're saying just back off and let us do our job.
So, you know, I would imagine a small town and the old school corruption, like the mayor and the district attorney and the prosecutor, and they all know each other, and they probably know these other 5 kids' families since it's a small town. And, you know, nobody wants their small town to be in the limelight for something not so good, you know, and they may be talking about it like in the church basement, but nobody's doing the right thing. So this is obviously a cover-up. The stench is horrible, you know. So that being said, where is Texas, where is the state in terms of victims' rights?
Well, it's actually come a long way over the years. I started my law enforcement career in Texas in 1986. There were no victims assistance coordinators, no VA officers. You know, victims were basically left to their own. Once a case was filed, if you can dig up the information, great, but there was no process to inform them or to even guide them through the system. Texas, I'm proud to say, in that time, over the last 40 years of my career, I've seen the progression to where now every police agency has to have a victims assistance officer. And then all prosecutor offices have to do those as well, all DA's offices. And their role, that VA's role, is to guide the victims through the process, to essentially hold their hand through the prosecution. but we're not getting that in this case.
Well, we're not getting the
stay away.
prosecution. So is that now? Does that VA, that victim's assistant, now just disappear because that hasn't been filled?
Well, I think they're disappearing in practice. They should be there in
Regardless,
reality.
right?
Yeah.
Regardless.
But there's also a VA from Double Oak PD that I don't know that you've ever talked to.
Never have.
And they should have reached out to them. It's the VA's responsibility to reach out to the victims in these cases,
So
and they haven't done it.
again, I'm just a dummy conduit to have a conversation with, but isn't there a methodology for lodging complaints or concerns with the state attorney general's office, or how does that work? Like VAs don't count? Who?
So the Attorney General's office in Texas is ultimately the one that's in charge of managing the VA program statewide. And the legislature has created good laws for victims in the state of Texas. There is a violent crimes victim fund. I think that's what it's called. And that's where victims of violent crime can submit applications to get paid to help offset the expenses of physical injuries or hospital bills or therapy or whatever. And that's a great thing that Texas has done. Texas really led the way in helping victims over the last 40 years. But it comes down to the individual victims assistance coordinators. And I've worked with some amazing ones, like the ones that I could name for the two agencies that I work for. Amazing people. They were on top of it. They helped victims. They coached victims. They had good hearts and they cared. And I didn't have to say, hey, where are you at? Why are you not doing anything in this case? They would often come to me first and say, what's the status of this case?
So,
all right, but we're not getting that here.
I really appreciate you being here, Patrick, because you have specific knowledge of this. But the VAs must be overworked, right? I mean, there's a lot of crime.
That is a
out
problem.
there. Okay,
there is a huge caseload for them.
But you know many of them, and you've run across many of them, and in essence, like people, I like to say most people are good. Most is only like 50.01%. But there's got to be a way to say, this Double Oak situation, Mr. State Attorney General, I think you really ought to look into that. Like, that's not right. We had some stuff here that was sensitive, and maybe the state police have to come in and kind of look into this thing. Maybe the state attorney general needs to send a couple of guys down there and say, how the fuck you run your operation?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, but politics are going to kick in as well, because I don't know what political affiliation the DA has in that county, whether he's Republican or Democrat. I don't know. But there's,
they're mostly Republican.
There's going to be some political influence there, and that's just a reality of it.
Is there a way to lodge a formal complaint, though, about even the VA system not operating properly? And again,
through the Attorney General's office, you can do that.
You can,
yeah.
Right? Because I'm not, I don't know any of these players,
right.
But I know that.
But what I don't want to do, I don't mean to cut you off. What I don't want to do is I don't want to villainize the VA people, because they may be acting on behalf of their leadership.
Yeah, they may be hogtied.
They may be limited in what they can say or do because their leadership is saying, don't have any more communication.
Right.
You need to stop, or you need to tell them, which I think Emily is doing. Correct. You need to tell them, just back off. Let us do our jobs.
I agree with you.
So a lot of times these VAs are used as the messengers, but that's not really what they think. They don't really feel that way, but they're stuck in the middle. And that's wrong. Because I would venture to say that 99.9% of the VA officers and VA coordinators in the state of Texas are amazing people with good hearts and good intentions, and they want to do right. But sometimes they're stuck in the middle.
Yeah, it's the same thing as, if you're working at Boeing and, a bad behavior, you don't want to necessarily have people lose their jobs, but you certainly want to make sure that overall safety and good behavior is taking place.
Right.
Yeah. But I think there's a little sabotage going on, not just corruption. I mean, certain people are being corrupt and certain people are just sabotaging the process
Yeah.
because they want it to go away.
Yeah. The DA needs to answer for why this case was not prosecuted.
So why can't we send open letters to the DA publicly and in the newspapers?
It absolutely can
It's
happen.
not illegal or
They're
inappropriate.
elected officials.
Right.
They answer to their population,
Yeah,
to the people
and-
who elected them, and the people they represent. And if you look at the mission statement for what county is it, Doug?
Denton County.
For Denton County, it says to apply. I'm paraphrasing, but basically to apply fair justice and create a safe community. Okay, well, what is fair justice? Is it just fair justice according to what you think is fair, or is it fair justice across the board?
Well, in my house, I'm never wrong. Of course, I'm the only person that
Which
lives
is
there.
probably
I'm the
how
only
this
one that
DA
lives
looks
there.
at it.
I'm the only
Yeah.
one that lives there.
Yeah, I make
But-
the decisions, so I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
You know?
I just, politics is fucked up, and electing a DA automatically makes it a political event.
Mhm.
So by default, but still, they have the ability, they have the specific ability to make sure that some line of justice is towed here,
Mhm.
and they're abrogating that responsibility.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so when I look at Doug and Josh and Emily, and I'm thinking, these people are, don't deserve this. The system, I sound like a broken record. All the systems are broken to some extent
Yeah.
because they're systems, because they're old, because they're not validated by good behavior sometimes.
Right.
So it's something that we really have to speak out about.
Look, I'm not a high-paid law enforcement consultant that has been brought in on this case to provide my expertise. I've known Doug for 25 years. He's a great friend, and I will always stand up with my friends when I know that they're right. And in this case, he is absolutely right, and I will support him and Amy and Josh in every way, because what has happened to them is wrong. There's no reason that this case should not have been filed already and charges filed. The question needs to be asked from whatever source you can find to the DA. Why?
Right.
Why are charges not being filed? Not give us time to work, not back off for a little while.
Right.
No. Why have charges not been filed, and when can we expect the next step, and what is that next step going to be?
I'm a little bit concerned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been subsequent to a lot of this stuff, and certainly the initial event, there was some other threats,
Yeah.
and that was after the event.
After this all started coming out. Yeah.
And still that goes nowhere. I mean, they already tell you, no, just walk away.
No, so it's interesting because one of the scenarios was, my son was walking across at the school, and one of the perpetrators revved his engine and sped at him very quickly, and he had to jump out of the way. And it's assault with a motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we reported that to the school resource officer, and that's where it ended. That's the question is, I want to know how many assaults have been filed with the school resource officer that have not been escalated.
Well, I'm just wondering why they wouldn't escalate one. If they say they're no more or we're not aware of them, it doesn't matter. If
Officer,
there's
last name's
one,
White, at Marcus High School, and I asked him, I said,
whether there's one or 100. I mean,
we have video evidence of a previous one from a year before where a kid gets knocked out cold. It's on video that nothing happened to him, and it was reported to the school resource officer. Yeah,
You're speechless.
I am, because I still get yelled at.
Right.
And, they're immune from everything.
nothing happened to the head coach. You cannot tell me that head coach is not aware of the culture. The first thing that we were told about this other video that appeared, well, there's more to it. Well, all right, tell us what else happened. Well, these boys were at each other for a long time. I said, then why didn't the head coach put a stop to it before it got to that point? It was interesting. I was with Pat earlier. The school has now come out with new protocols. At the sacrifice of my son, no more off-site dinners, no more being in a shower or being in the locker room without adult present. There's all these protocols.
Well, that's all, window dressing on,
Yeah.
on something that should have never happened to begin with. But
Yeah.
you mentioned about this kid who was rolled in a red anthill.
Uh-huh.
And, even if you're not allergic to red ant bites, if you're being rolled around in an anthill, that could cause serious medical harm or even death in some people, right? If
He
you're
was too afraid to come
allergic,
forward. He
yeah.
won't. We've talked to every one of the victims, and they're all afraid because they've seen what has happened to
Right.
Josh now.
Okay, so brings me back to I used to watch a lot of crime shows. Not that I'm a criminal or a law,
You weren't trying to
law
learn.
enforcement.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
that, and I've watched every narco show, every mafia gang boss show, and this kind of just strikes me a lot like mafia type, conspiracy or RICO, right? Like
Yeah.
RICO's the best.
Yeah.
Like
It
you
goes
don't have-
back to the good old boy system.
yeah, which is RICO.
Yeah.
That's why they created the RICO statutes so they could get Al Capone.
So another story interesting that came out of this, after the boys were suspended, the head coach, Michael Alexander, went on live stream the last game of the season. And he goes, well, I know we're short of and we have this on recorded. It's all recorded. You can go back and watch it. It's still at the school live stream. He said, as soon as these, we get our lives, we get these boys back, we go to the playoffs, they'll be back on the starting line. There's no accountability at all. He knew exactly what happened. Why was he not the first in line saying this stuff's got to stop? I mean, I'll call him
'Cause
out
he's
all
all
day
about to
long.
win.
His name is Michael Alexander. He lives in Grapevine. He coaches at Marcus High School. He's the head coach there. And there's been nothing but dragging. I mean, it's horrible.
Well, politics is filled with people that are inscrutable, they're selfish, they're corrupt. I mean, it's just riddled with that kind of personality defect. But the truth is, with all the God-fearing people in Texas and all the people that go to church every Sunday and show beautiful, send you beautiful holiday cards and tell you that little Billy is now, he's going to be a daddy, and you hear all this shit. Yet they have their kids doing criminal activity, committing criminal activity, and it doesn't go anywhere. Not one of those parents called to apologize. Not any of the kids. Like when I was a young teenager, we were playing with firecrackers at the park, right? And the park had a ball field and it had some metal bleachers, and there were a couple of girls up there talking, and I was running around playing with my friends, and we were throwing firecrackers. And one of the firecrackers landed on the bleacher near a girl, and she got a little burn on her leg. Okay? The girl happened to be the daughter of a priest in town of a very big church. And I knew these people. My father knew these people. When it was brought to my attention, it was brought to my father's attention, the very first thing he said is, you go to that house and you apologize to that entire family. And if you don't do it right, don't come back here. Okay? Because I will find out what you said and how you behaved.
Right.
But, it was just a dumb thing, nothing, and back then, parents would tell their kids, apologize. Or if you ever do that again, I'm going to knock you upside the head.
Yeah.
Or, wash your mouth out with soap, or whatever the old sayings were.
Accountability.
Right? And nowadays,
Just don't say anything.
Little
Shut
Billy?
up. Don't say a word.
yeah, shut up, Billy, because, or that's okay, just don't do it again. That was pretty stupid. I mean, this is criminal act after criminal act.
Well, Doug, there's another charge that could have been filed by the DA's office, which is engaging in organized criminal activity. When you have more than two people who engage in a certain specific felony crimes, including aggravated robbery, unlawful restraint, things like that, robbery. You can charge them with that crime. So in this case, they could have been charged with aggravated robbery because Josh initially thought it was a real gun when they took his property from him and left. And then they all could have also been charged with another charge of engaging in organized criminal activity. But again, if the DA doesn't want to do it for whatever reason, and we can all make our own judgment and opinions on why they're not filing. If the DA doesn't want to file it, it's not going to get filed. And if it doesn't matter how good a case it is, if the prosecutor goes in and tells the grand jury this is not a good case, it's not going to happen.
All right. And the good thing is we're not dealing with the mafia, but it has to be treated, and you have to go after them like Elliot Ness and the mobs in Chicago, because this is RICO. What you've described is kind of the RICO statute on a
much smaller scale.
But, here we have a gang. I don't give a shit if you call it a football team. It's a gang threatening and harming a human, another individual. Nothing to do with teammate or hazing or anything else. Okay? And believe me, I would make that community, that mayor and that prosecutor and that police chief and that school, resource officer, I would publicize the shit out of it. And I would make them come to answer all the questions and, probably just lie on the air. If they had to answer a question, they'd lie. But, adding perjury to the list is no big deal. But I think that we have to put pressure on the parties that are refusing to take what is considered to be the normal actions for their position.
Well, and for all those people, an important question to ask would be, if this was your son, would you look at it differently? If your son was the one who got shot, would we still be in this position where I'm basically pleading with you to file charges?
Those may be the same kind of people that just say, what are you fucking complaining about? Boys will be boys. And I'm just, I'm flabbergasted because to me, this is it's a much bigger than, crime than what it just looks like on paper.
It's not boys being boys.
No.
Josh, I don't know if you've seen the video, or not the video, but the pictures afterwards of his injuries. They're pretty substantial. Like it's more than just being shot with a paintball and leaving a little bit of bruising. These were serious injuries that he had. So this is being painted as though it's not really that big a deal. It was just boys being boys. But he was injured.
Yeah, he was attacked by a gang. I mean, I don't see it any other way. And you could say, well, it's just football hazing. Who the fuck do you think I am? I didn't just fall off a turnip truck. But I would really, I'd be fighting harder than ever, and I'll do whatever I can to help, because I think it's a disgrace. It's a disgraceful commentary on that community in its entirety.
Double Oak Police Department, reach out to them. Denton County District Attorney, reach out to them. Marcus High School, reach out to them. The LASD, you can light them up. That's the main thing, is now that they've made that position that they're not going to prosecute. Our only other effect now is to go after them civilly, but that's a long, extenuous process.
And it's expensive,
very expensive.
I also think that in my own world, I would probably be up and down the state attorney general's neck in every political way I could do it. And it just, to me, it's too important to let it go. And I would irritate the fuck out of all of these people.
And if the DA is not doing what this community expects him to do, there's a process to replace him. And I, not to get political, but I tend to lean more conservative. And so I'm not speaking against a Republican DA or a Democratic DA, But if that prosecutor is not doing what you want,
Well, he's not doing. It's not what he wants.
what he should do. What he should do.
What he should do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, what he should do. So if he's not doing his job, well, then there are mechanisms in place to get him replaced.
Yeah.
And I think that those probably need to be pursued.
Yeah, and I would vote against any
Do your
DA
job. That's
that
all you got to do is do your job.
Yeah.
I would vote against any DA that doesn't protect children.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's refusing to do his job and refusing to say why he's not doing his job.
Yeah.
So he's failing on both levels.
We've asked a dozen times for a face-to-face.
Yeah.
A dozen times.
But I bet his conviction rate's really high. I would check into that.
Really.
with traffic tickets. Maybe.
Yeah.
What a, I mean that's disgraceful.
If you don't go to trial, your conviction rate remains very high.
Wow.
Well,
and they told me that everybody's going to go to trial on this one.
By the way,
Really.
Which we're not.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and if they didn't do anything wrong, then they should be happy to go to trial,
Yeah.
and they should be happy to get off and say, "See, he's the idiot."
Yeah.
5 against 1, and
Last night we tried to go to a high school baseball game. My son invited me to go watch one of his teammates play, which Josh completely dropped out of sports. He went to the locker room the Tuesday after Christmas to try to get back in the swing of things. And they just looked at him like, "What are you doing here? I thought you quit. We don't have room for quitters."
So the culture.
The
persisted.
culture, it's a culture thing.
Yeah.
When we went to the game last night, there was two of the perpetrators there. Drove an hour and a half to say 15 minutes to leave. The principal, have no contact rules with the perpetrators and my son. Like, we can't even go to a game because we're not allowed to be close to.
yeah, you've been victimized,
Yeah.
and the bad people will continue to do poor behavior and be the assholes that they are.
Yep.
And no good deed goes unpunished,
Yep.
right? Like, my son was harmed, and I'm trying to do good by virtue of bringing it to the attention of all these other people so that their kids could remain safe.
Yep.
And this is how these fucking assholes respond.
Yep.
I mean, it makes me nuts, to tell you the truth. I'm going to leave here and, I call you every once in a while and we talk, and I don't talk to him every day, but, that's why I'm fucking angry, Alan.
Exactly. I appreciate
because-
you getting the word out.
Yeah. I mean, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think about my own kids, and I know my little guy was playing lacrosse, and he was the smallest kid on the team. He was also fast, and he was good, but not as good as a lot of the other kids. But the shit, and he finally came to me. He said, "Dad, the coaches be a real asshole. He's not letting me play. He sees that I'm getting fouled all the time, and he doesn't say anything." He quit lacrosse.
Yeah.
And, that's like nothing compared to what your son's gone through. And
Yeah.
I'm just,
As a parent, you look forward to walking out with your child on senior night. That will never happen for us. That will never happen. He's done. It's like you win. You're done. It's like, all the things you look forward to sitting in the crowds on Friday night. Pat even came down last season to watch him play. That was his last game that he played when Pat was there.
Wow.
We didn't know it. But that was the last game he played.
Yeah.
And he was starting offensive lineman.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
And so the game I came down for was before this incident happened.
No, it was right after that.
Was it right after?
Right after that, yeah. It was right after.
That's
They
right.
hadn't publicized it
That's
yet.
right, that's
but
right.
the boys had been already up there. So yeah.
Yeah. And so how is Josh different now?
He's very protective of who he's around. Yeah, we got him in trauma therapy very quickly.
He's
And
looking over his shoulder all the time.
Looking over his shoulder, but more it's the trauma, the nightmares, the things, the things he goes through in the evenings, at night. I don't have any friends. All my
Right.
friends are gone. They've abandoned me. I'll have everybody else is going to football games and baseball games, and he's sitting at home. And we tried to we looked at changing schools and everything else, but he does have some friends that are there. But the thing is it's not the same. Like we don't. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't ever restore that back to
No, and you can't. you know, there were several coaches that called him to try to recruit him to come over to his school, and I'm sure we'd have got a transfer just fine. But at that point, they'd already ruined it for him.
Yeah.
The boys had already ruined it for him.
Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate you having me and the story and everything else, and Pat and everybody on the show. And it's just, the main thing is just reach out to these people and ask them, why have they not been charged yet? Why is there no probable cause warrants? Why
You give me a list of names,
I'll get
and
you a list of
believe me,
names.
I'll be on them like white on rice.
I will.
I am so pissed off about it that
Yeah.
the only good thing to me is that I could be so much more pissed off about what you're pissed off about
Yeah.
than what I'm pissed off about. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
We'll get them out there. We'll put them on your comment section.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I'm going to urge you to let's try to find some journalistic
Yeah.
backup to develop a community outreach, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I can't believe that all these church-going people could let this, you know, go into the night like nothing happened.
I even asked for the Matthew 18 process, if you're familiar with that process. If you have an odd with your brother, you go to your brother, then you go to the elders, and you go to the church. Crickets. You're of such godly value, no earthly value. It's like, seriously, we're trying to come to you guys. Matthew 18 is very clear. Very clear.
Yeah.
So
Well,
appreciate it, Alan. Thank you
all
so
right,
much.
man. Good to see you.
You too, brother.
Really nice to meet you,
Thank you.
Patrick.
As well.
And I thank you for being on and your expertise.
Thank you.
Great. I hope we are back again. And
Better news.
yeah, well, yeah. Let's
Hopefully.
Yeah.
yeah. Let's drive this train forward.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.